Have you ever felt like nothing more than a shadow in your own marriage? I once believed that, after 5 years of trying, my husband's family would finally accept me as one of their own. But then, one seemingly harmless weekend changed everything. My husband told me he was off to a family reunion at the lake. I believed him, until the moment I opened Instagram and saw the truth laid bare: the entire family gathered at a lavish engagement party without me uninvited. That night, I knew something had shifted forever, and the journey from being excluded to rising again, to reclaiming myself, is the story I'm about to share with you. Chapter 1. The Opening Lie. That morning, I had just set my cup of coffee down on the table when Noah's phone buzzed. He snatched it up so quickly I barely had time to blink. I was used to his calm demeanor, used to the way he dragged his feet with everything. But in that moment, his speed made my stomach tighten. He glanced at the screen, scrolled rapidly, and then deleted the message, without a single word of explanation. I tried to keep my voice even. Something wrong. He gave me a strained smile, setting the phone face down on the table. Just Mom. The family's having a reunion at the lake this weekend. Nothing special. Nothing special, I laughed inwardly. The Fletchers never did anything that could be called nothing special. They planned a backyard barbecue like it was a wedding. Noel sent out invitations 3 months in advance. Everything about them had to be polished, loud, and showy. And yet this time, he claimed it was just a simple family trip. I nodded, pretending to be casual. Sounds fun. Which lake? He answered quickly, turning his back to pour more coffee. The same place as last year where Dad's birthday was. Then he rattled off a list of details: golf stock market talk, Mom complaining about the humidity. You'd be bored stiff. Better for you to just relax with your friends. He mentioned Dana and Mel. I remembered Dana had once invited me to go skiing while Mel had been craving a getaway. I hadn't made up my mind because, honestly, I always felt guilty at the thought of leaving my husband alone. But this time, with Noah suggesting it first, my heart gave a subtle pang. It felt as if he had already made his calculations, like he wanted me to have other plans, so I couldn't suddenly show up at this so-called family trip. I smiled, though it never reached my eyes. Maybe I'll call Dana. He bent down to brush a quick kiss against my forehead. Perfect. We'll both have fun. When he left the table, I looked at the coffee cup he had abandoned. A thin brown streak clung to the bottom. Suddenly, my own coffee tasted bitterer than ever. Something wasn't right. I couldn't put my finger on it, but instinct whispered this wasn't just an ordinary family outing. For 5 years, I had always felt like an outsider in the Fletcher family. No one ever said it outright, but I saw it in every glance, in every conversation that stopped the moment I walked into a room. They never once called me family, only Noah's wife. I used to console myself, believing time would change things, but that morning, watching my husband's back as he walked away, I began to wonder, had I never truly been welcome at all? Chapter 2. The Excluded passed 5 years of being Noah's wife, and I thought I had grown used to the quiet coldness of his family. They had never openly despised me, but they had never truly welcomed me either. Every time I entered a room, the conversation seemed to dip, as if I had interrupted some hidden secret. Laughter that had once rung out turned into vague, shallow remarks. I would force a smile trying to join in, but I never once felt like I belonged. I still remember last Christmas vividly. I prepared a green bean casserole, a dish I had practiced all week to make perfect. When I placed it on the table, my mother-in-law merely gave a slight nod before swiftly shifting the conversation to the turkey. And yet I felt happy then, because that was the first time she'd ever complimented me, however brief. I clung to that small remark as if it were a sign of hope, as if I had finally found a crack through which I might slip into their hearts. There were other times they appeared friendly. My father-in-law asked about my job at the marketing firm, nodding along as I told him about a successful campaign. My sister-in-law even showed me pictures of her new apartment. I allowed myself to believe that after all these years, I was no longer just Noah's wife, but slowly becoming a part of the Fletcher family. But on closer reflection, those moments felt more like polite gestures than genuine connection. Their most important traditions always unfolded without me. Grandfather's milestone birthday was celebrated in private, and no one thought to invite me. Reunions with distant relatives, I only learned of them when I stumbled upon photos on social media. And whenever I asked, Noah brushed it off. Oh, just a small thing. You don't need to worry about it. I told myself maybe they were simply too close-knit, that there were certain things too personal to share with an outsider. I tried not to dwell on it, tried to find excuses for the gnawing sense of being left out. But the loneliness grew heavier. I remember sitting in the living room, once everyone laughing uproariously at some inside joke. When I asked about it, the whole room exchanged glances before someone quickly changed the subject. I forced a chuckle, took a sip of water, and pretended not to notice. In those moments, I felt like nothing more than an unwanted guest, present only to preserve Noah's perfect image. And now when Noah lied about just a simple family gathering, all those memories came flooding back. The way they always kept me on the sidelines. The invisible line they drew between us and her. I began to wonder, had I been living in an illusion these past 5 years, hoping one day they would accept me, or had I never stood a chance from the very beginning? Chapter 3. The Instagram shock that weekend. I went skiing with Dana and Mel. The mountain air was crisp, scented with pine, and the smoky warmth of fireplaces burning in the lodge. We picked a spot near the window, ordered hot cocoa topped with whipped cream and marshmallows. The cold wind left my cheeks flushed, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could finally breathe again. Dana handed me her phone. You have to post this one. The lighting's perfect. It was a picture of me standing at the top of the slope, snowy peaks stretching endlessly behind me, my red coat blazing under the sunlight. I opened Instagram, ready to type a light-hearted caption like mountain therapy. But just then, a notification popped up I had been tagged in a photo. The account name was Carol Noah's aunt. We had barely spoken before, only polite exchanges here and there. But the preview beneath the photo made my heart clench. So proud of my youngest nephew's engagement. Engagement. In Noah's family, there were only 2 brothers, and Marcus, the youngest, was the one beaming happily as he dropped to one knee and proposed to his girlfriend Sarah in the dazzling pictures. I tapped on the post. My screen lit up with crystal chandeliers, banquet tables draped in white linen roses arranged in elaborate displays. This was no reunion at the lake like Noah had told me. This was an extravagant engagement party with every single family member in attendance. I zoomed in on a photo. At a table near the dance floor, I spotted my mother-in-law in the navy blue dress I had helped her pick out last year. She was raising her glass, smiling radiantly. And in the far edge of the frame, there he was, Noah. In a crisp black tuxedo, hair slicked neatly, pride etched across his face. Not the polo shirt and shorts for a weekend at the lake he had described. I scrolled through more images. The whole family gathered on stage, showering the couple with applause. A video clip showed Marcus on one knee, Sarah's eyes brimming with tears as she held up her hand, the diamond ring sparkling under the lights. The camera panned across the crowd, and there was Noah, clapping enthusiastically, his eyes shining eyes that hadn't looked at me that way in a very long time. I froze. My heart pounded, sweat prickling cold against my skin despite the snow outside. A part of me wanted to believe there was some misunderstanding, some reasonable explanation. But every photo, every video, every familiar face told the same story I had been deliberately excluded. With trembling hands, I called Noah. Once, twice, 3 times, straight to voicemail. I texted him, and the only reply I received was 2 words. Not convenient. Not convenient to talk to his wife on the very night his brother got engaged. I set my phone down on the table. My vision blurred, not from the icy air, but from the realization that hit like a blade. In that instant, the fragments of the last 5 years snapped into place I had never belonged to them. And tonight, they had proven it in the cruelest way possible. Chapter 4. The Mountain Post and Aftershocks. That night, I couldn't sleep. The images of the entire family gathered around Marcus and Sarah replayed in my mind like a cruel reel. Noah's smile in that unfamiliar tuxedo haunted me. Beside me, he was often indifferent, his gaze long since dulled. Yet in those pictures, he shone so brightly, it felt as though I were a stranger, spying on the joy of another man. The next morning, Dana knocked on my door with a steaming cup of coffee and a strained smile. "Let's go ski early. The fresh air will do you good." I obeyed quietly, slipping on my coat, and joined them on the lift to the highest peak. As the cabin carried us upward, I breathed deeply, filling my lungs with the biting, crystalline cold. At the summit, the wind howled and the snow glittered fiercely under the sun. "The light's perfect," Dana said. "Let me take a picture of you." I almost refused. But when I turned my face toward the sun, eyes closed, I suddenly felt something I hadn't known in years: peace. The photo appeared on her screen, me framed by majestic mountains, strands of hair kissed by sunlight, my expression calmer than it had been in years. Staring at that image, I realized for the first time, in a long time, I no longer wore the look of someone desperate for approval. I opened Instagram, my fingers hovering over the caption bar. I thought of something simple, like fresh powder or mountain therapy. But then, the memory of the engagement party surged back, their laughter, their celebration, the ease with which they excluded me. My hands typed something else. Turns out the mountains welcome me more warmly than some families ever have. I hit post before I could second-guess myself. The responses came faster than I expected. Likes and comments poured in. Friends messaged, "Are you okay?" Neighbors wrote, "The mountains never judge." Coworkers left deep red hearts. But what froze me was a private message notification from Jaime, my sister-in-law. Just a few sharp words. "What's your problem?" Before I could react, my phone rang. The screen lit up, mother-in-law. I let it ring 4 times before declining. She called again immediately. I placed the phone face down on the wooden table, my palms slick with sweat. A new text flashed across the screen from Noah. "Did you have to make a scene like this? You're embarrassing the whole family." I stared at those words, then let out a bitter laugh. Not the laugh of relief, but the hollow, jagged sound of someone realizing just how long they had lived in the shadows. To him, my being excluded from one of the family's most important occasions had never been the issue. The only issue was that I dared to speak. And in that moment, I knew one photo, one short caption was enough to shake their perfect night. If the bare truth unsettled them this much, then maybe I should have stopped pretending everything was fine a very long time ago. Chapter 5. Confrontation at home and the decision to leave. I came back earlier than planned. The car stopped in front of the house while the sky was still bright around 4 in the afternoon. In my head, I had rehearsed 100 sharp questions to throw in my husband's face. But when my hand touched the doorknob, all I felt was emptiness. Noah was standing in the kitchen, still dressed in a crisp white shirt, black slacks, and hair slicked neatly back. There was no trace of the lake getaway he had described. He looked up at me, and his eyes instantly darkened. No welcoming smile, no word of concern. The first thing he said was, "You've made everything worse." I froze. "Worse? What do you mean?" He crossed his arms, his tone clipped and sharp. "Your post. Do you have any idea how much gossip the family's had to deal with? You turned Marcus's engagement into a public spectacle." A chill ran down my spine. "You're saying I'm the one at fault? Not you for lying to me about your brother's engagement party? Not you for letting me find out the truth through Instagram?" Noah raked his hand through his hair, sighing heavily. "You don't understand. My mother. She thought your presence would make things tense. I didn't want to argue, didn't want to ruin Marcus's special day." I stared at him, feeling my heart splinter piece by piece. "Do you even hear yourself? You let your mother decide that your wife wasn't worthy of being there on a milestone day for the family, and you agreed, stayed silent, and lied to me. Have you ever once stood up for me, Noah, just once?" He dropped his gaze, silent. And in that silence, I knew it was over. I went upstairs and pulled an old suitcase from the closet. I folded clothes, packed away pieces of myself. I had long abandoned my grandmother's jewelry, a few beloved books, the scarf my sister had given me. One by one, I reclaimed fragments of a life that had always been mine. Noah leaned against the doorway, his eyes weary. "You don't have to make this dramatic. We can get through this." I lifted my head and looked straight at him. "No, Noah. The only thing you've gotten through is me. You've passed right over me to choose your family's comfort. And this time, I'm choosing myself." I hauled the suitcase down the stairs. On his pillow still lay a pink note I had once written, "I miss you even when you haven't gone far." I picked it up, smoothed it flat, and set it neatly back down. But this time, it wasn't a love note. It was proof of the naivete I was leaving behind forever. The door closed behind me. No tears, no screaming, just silence splitting an entire marriage in two. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't just walking out of a house. I was walking out of my own shadow. Chapter 6. Aftershocks and the Unveiling of Truth. I moved into Mel's place, the best friend who had often told me, "If the day ever comes when you can't take it anymore, my door will always be open." Her sofa became my temporary refuge, warmer than any lavish room the Fletchers had ever offered me. For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly asleep, unhaunted by scrutinizing eyes or laughter, cut short the moment I entered a room. 3 days later, my phone chimed with a new email. Sender Patricia Fletcher, my mother-in-law. The subject line carried a single word, "Sorry." My heart clenched briefly, but I opened it anyway. The message was brutally short. "We never meant to hurt you, but we felt your presence at the party would make things tense. You've never seemed particularly interested in family events, so we assumed you wouldn't feel left out. Hope you understand." I read it 3 times. An apology that was in truth an accusation. Not interested in family events, I had shown up at every occasion. They allowed me into bringing gifts, cooking dishes, forcing a smile, even when hollow inside. But in their eyes, none of that existed. The worst part was this: they believed I wouldn't notice being excluded. They believed I didn't matter. I didn't respond. For the first time in years, I felt no need to explain or defend myself. That afternoon, an unexpected message appeared. "Emily, the kindest cousin in Noah's family. Just a few words, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner." I called her right away. We spoke for 2 hours. She revealed it wasn't a misunderstanding at all. Patricia had orchestrated everything. She had insisted on family only, and when someone asked why I wasn't invited, she said plainly, "She doesn't fit the vibe." Noah had heard it, and he nodded in agreement. No protest, no defense, just one silent nod that sealed my exclusion from one of the family's most important moments. When I heard that, the tears refused to come. I sat still, feeling the final thread inside me snap. I had feared I was imagining too much, that I was being overly sensitive. But now, with a witness confirming it, the truth stood undeniable. And in that bottomless pain, something strange happened. My phone began buzzing with messages from strangers. A woman from Ohio wrote, "Thank you. I've been excluded by my in-laws for 8 years. Reading your caption made me realize I'm not alone. Another message, you said the words I've never dared to speak." As I read those lines, a different feeling surged through me, strength. For the first time, I wasn't just the victim of exclusion. I was the one who had spoken out, and that voice resonated, reaching the hearts of women carrying the same wound. It turned out, when the truth has been buried too long, even the smallest crack is enough for light to pour through. And in that moment, I knew I had found the crack for myself. Chapter 7. Closing the door on Noah. One evening, exactly a month after I had walked out of that house, I heard urgent knocks at the door. Mel peeked through the front door, then turned to me with a small frown. "Avery, it's Noah." My heartbeat slowed, heavy and deliberate. I stood, my hands unconsciously clutching the hem of my sweater. For weeks I had imagined this moment over and over, always picturing myself trembling weak on the verge of giving in. But when it finally arrived, all I felt was a strange stillness in my chest. I stepped into the hallway. Noah stood there, his frame thinner, dark circles etched under his eyes from sleepless nights. He forced a weak smile. "Avery, can we talk? Just 5 minutes." I opened the door just wide enough to see him, then held my ground. "Talk." He swallowed hard, his hands clenching and loosening. "I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have let them exclude you. I shouldn't have lied, but I think we can fix this. I'm ready to change. I'll talk to Mom. I'll bring you back into the family." I looked into those eyes once the place I sought warmth, but now all I saw was the reflection of a man who always chose comfort over truth. My voice came calm, almost foreign to myself. "Noah, you had 5 years to stand up for me. 5 years to choose me, and you never did." His face tightened as he stepped closer. "But this time is different, I promise." I shook my head. "You only want to make amends because now you're facing the consequences, not because you truly value me. I'm no longer the woman who waits around for promises." In that moment, I saw the collapse flicker in his eyes, but I felt no regret, no fury, only release. I closed the door, not with a hateful slam, but with a quiet, final resolve. Behind that door, Noah could linger as long as he wanted. But for me, the story was finished. I turned back toward the living room where warm light still glowed. And for the first time in years, I felt truly safe in the choice that was mine alone. Chapter 8, The Second Summit and Rebirth. 2 weeks later, I returned to that mountain. The same winding road, the same wooden lodge scented with smoke and pine, the same cabin carrying me up to the sky. But this time, I came alone. The first time I stood there, my heart had been heavy, my mind crowded with unanswered questions. I had looked down over the snow-covered valley and felt as though my entire world was collapsing. But today, I returned with a different spirit. At the summit, the wind still howled in sharp gusts, but instead of cutting into my skin, it made me feel alive. I stretched my arms wide, closed my eyes, let the cold seep through every layer of fabric, let the early winter sun shine straight onto my face. And in that moment, I whispered, "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to be free." It felt as though a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I no longer needed to carry anger. No longer needed to lock myself inside the endless why. I didn't need the Fletcher's acceptance, nor Noah's remorse. I had chosen myself, and that choice was fuller, richer than any validation they could ever offer. I opened my eyes to the world awash with sunlight and glistening snow. The horizon stretched wide and endless before me, and I smiled a true smile, unforced, unmasked. I was no longer the woman trembling behind closed doors, hiding tears in silence. I was the woman who had dared to shut a rotten door, so she could walk straight into her own light. And there at the summit, I knew I had been reborn. Now looking back, I don't feel pain anymore. I feel gratitude. Gratitude that the truth forced my eyes open. Gratitude that the hurt led me to that mountain where I learned to forgive, to let go, and to choose myself. I don't need half-hearted apologies. I don't need the approval of a family that never wanted me to belong. I only need one truth: I am strong enough to walk away. And when I walked away, I didn't just leave a marriage behind. I left behind the fragile shadow of myself. If this story speaks to you, remember this: your worth does not lie in anyone else's acceptance. It lies in how you rise, how you love yourself, and how you choose to live a life worthy of you.